speak about right now. So without any further ado, I'll pass you on to Natalie. We'll go, I think, that direction towards the end. I think we'll make the best sense. So Natalie, then Alan, then Michaela, and then we'll hopefully have time to open up to the floor a bit.
Well, thank you very much, and I think my knees are going to take this for 10 minutes. I've just done my 4-hour shift at the People's Supermarket, a wonderful cooperative just over a few streets away, and I spent 4 hours of lifting things up and down, but I think the knees will hold for the next 10 minutes. I stand here in the week of the Queen's speech, and I guess, when we're talking about both socialism and climate change, it's easy to be depressed. If you take particularly the infrastructure bill in the climate change, in the speech, everything in it is bad for climate change and bad for people. We have a situation where we're promoting fracking, offering huge tax breaks and the opportunity to drill underneath your house whether you like it or not without even necessarily telling you. We have, let's build new roads, because new roads are a great way to progress society. And we have that small stop with the plastic bag tax. But nonetheless, what I really want to talk about today and be today is really optimistic. And I've got some obvious reasons for optimism. I'm sure everyone knows that we've just had the European election, and the Green Party, we both grew our number of MEPs. We sent Molly Scott-Cato to Europe from the southwest, first time we've ever had a southwest MEP. And probably even better, we had really strong council election results. In fact, at the moment you're sitting in Islington, where the Green Party is the opposition to the Labour Council. Now, when I say the Green Party is the opposition, I actually mean one person, Caroline Russell. She's our one Green MP, one Green councillor, and Labour should be really, really scared. Anyone who knows Caroline Russell knows exactly what I mean. But it's not just, election results, mild election results, UKIP got its comeuppance, all of those things. But actually, we're really in a period, I believe with all my heart, that we are actually heading into a period of massive change. If you just think about the state of our society at the moment, think about the fact that 1 million people last year had to rely on food banks, had to rely on charity to feed themselves. If you think about the fact that 20% of workers are on less than a living wage, and you think about all the issues of climate change, and the fact that we don't actually have an energy policy in Britain, the fact is that where we are now is not stable. There will be change. I say that with absolute certainty, and there will be massive change. Because I think we can take an analogy from biology in this, and when I was a kid, I was taught about evolution as this gradual thing where things change gradually. But actually, we know now that evolution changes in big leaps, what they call punctuated equilibrium. And I think what we're heading towards in terms of Britain is a big leap, a big change in politics. And that's a huge opportunity for all of us to present ideas for positive change, to present a real idea of how to make things different. Now I'm going to briefly mention some of the things that as a Green Party we're working on. And I'm going to start with what I call really quite little things. And this would sound pretty radical outside this room, but I think you'll probably agree with me, these are the small changes. We want to make the minimum wage a living wage. We simply want to say, if you work full-time, you should earn enough money to live on. And I've actually seen what kind of difference actually having a living wage makes to people, because some of you may know the 3 Cosses campaign, the University of London, again just over a couple of streets over that way. And I've been supporting them from the start, and it's a wonderful campaign because after a really long, hard struggle, the cleaners at the University of London got the living wage. And they might have at that point gone, we've got the living wage, we've had a long fight. But they're absolutely inspiring because they said, now we've got the living wage, we want more. And their 3 Cosses, which is 3 things in Spanish, which is about my only word of Spanish. 3 Cosses is they want pensions, sick pay and holiday pay exactly proportionate to what the academics get. And they're out there and they're fighting to get it. And they're absolutely inspiring. And if you're ever in the vicinity, you'll definitely hear one of their demos, because they've got the loudest drums you have ever heard. And they really, you know when they're having a demo. So they're really inspiring. But, we should make that for everyone. Give everyone a living wage, and then people would have a bit more time, space, energy to really start to campaign for other things. A nice, easy one, not a big change at all. Caroline Lucas, the Green MP, has a private members' bill now before Parliament to do just that. Let's renationalise the railways. It's very simple. All you have to do is wait for the train operating companies' contracts to lapse, bring them back into public hands, and we can all enjoy travelling on trains like the East Coast, which is my favourite train line, and not just because it's publicly owned, but also you can just feel the difference when you travel. And then, probably the biggest one in my small three, and it's a really tough fight and there's a huge amount to do, but we have to defend, keep and restore our publicly owned, publicly run NHS. We simply have to say the profit motive has no place in healthcare. We have a huge fight under that, and many of you may well know the proposed EU-US free trade deal, which the Green Party's doing a lot of work opposing at the moment in Europe. And that is a real threat to our NHS, an immediate thing to fight, an immediate issue to focus attention on protecting the NHS around. And that's hugely important. So that's sort of three fairly simple, very easy things. But I was talking about a big, huge change in the whole way society works. And none of those things really quite fit up to that. So I'm going to just very briefly explore a couple of the ideas of the things that the Green Party is looking at. And one of them is what's known as the citizens or basic income. And I don't know, does everyone in this room know what I mean by a basic or citizens income? Yes. Yeah, alright, okay. I spent a whole of yesterday at the Citizens Income Trust talking about the basic income. And this has the potential to be absolutely transformatory. We were talking about lots of different ways about how you can think about a citizens or a basic income. And one of them that I often talk about is a freedom from fear. So many people these days are actually really thinking, tomorrow, next week, next month, I might not simply be able to pay the bills. I mightn't be able to keep a roof over my head. I mightn't be able to buy tomorrow's food to eat tomorrow. And if you have a citizens or basic income that meets people's basic needs, then you take away that fear. And I think if you look at other ways of looking at this, you can think about this from a human rights perspective. And we haven't perhaps talked about human rights in these terms a lot lately, but the right to food, shelter and clothing are the most basic rights of all. And if you can have a basic income that guarantees your access to those things, this is absolutely critical. Now, one of the things that's interesting about the basic income is it really freaks out mainstream economists. That's fun in itself, yes, I know. But the reason why it freaks out mainstream economists is it's really hard to model how people would behave if there's a basic income. If you decoupled working from the need to actually to feed yourself, to clothe yourself, you can really decide how you want to spend your time. Now, one of the things that I think might happen under a basic income is you'd really change wage differentials. One of the things that you would find is that you might have to pay sewer cleaners a lot more than we do now. This is always the point where someone puts their hand up and says, my friend's a sewer cleaner and he loves his job. But anyway, most of us probably wouldn't want to be a sewer cleaner. And you might get to the point where sewer cleaners get paid more than bankers do. I think that might be a very interesting point of position to be in. And I think if you sort of think about some of the really horrible jobs we've got in our society, genuinely horrible jobs, everyone would hate. You think about those really horrible call centres. The kind of call centres where you have to answer every call and finish in 53 seconds, and every time you go to the loo it gets timed. And I think you might find that no one would work in call centres like that if you didn't need to keep a roof over your head and the food on the table, and they would disappear. And I think that would be better both for the workers and for all the rest of us who have to ring those call centres as well. So the citizen's income has a real potential to really fundamentally change society. Say, you are accepted as a member of this society, you will have your basic needs met. And that's a big leap forward. Now, the other thing that I'd like to explore is the issue of working hours. Because we have in Britain some of the longest working hours in Europe, and this has all sorts of negative effects in terms of impacts on family life, impacts on personal life, impacts on the chance to simply have a life. Now, Green Party policy has been for many years the idea of reducing the standard working week to 35 hours as a standard working week. But I think if we're really starting to think radically, think outside the box, I'd like to go to the New Economics Foundation idea, which their suggestion is that we should work our way gradually towards a standard 21-hour working week. And I think this is really important of thinking about how that would transform society, but it also very much fits in with the theme of today, which is the fact that we are currently in Britain, no matter how you're living as an individual, all of us collectively using the resources of 3 planets. Every year we use that much resources. We focus a lot, rightly, on climate change, but there's all the issues about the degradation of our soils, the damage to our oceans, our fresh water, the fact that we're just utterly trashing our biodiversity. And that has to change, and it has to change fast. And we have to ask people to choose to live differently, to choose, in short, if you want a shorthand, to have less stuff. And in a consumer-driven society where everyone's trying to scramble up the ladder because they're frightened of falling back down, that's a really tough ask. And that's where I think if you put reduced working hours and a citizen's income or basic income together, you start to imagine a society that works differently. Because if you've got a basic income that cushions you, that makes sure you always have the basics of life, then you don't worry about your income going down really so much. You don't worry about going down that ladder of hierarchy of jobs so much. And if we're going to ask people to have less stuff, think about, instead of growing GDP, think about some different kind of progress. Then if you think about maybe every year we aim to cut the standard working week by 15 minutes. Every 4 years, every week you get an extra hour of life. You have time to do whatever it is you'd like to do, whether it's garden, whether it's spend time with your friends, whether it's be down the pub, whether it's whatever you would like to do. Every 4 years you get more time to do what you want to do. And as I've often heard Caroline Lucas say, no one lies on their deathbed and says, I wish I'd spent more time in the office. And if you get that more time, you might have less stuff in your life. You might be flying to Prague for a stag weekend or something similar. But we start to really fundamentally reshape society. So those are 2 of the ideas that I'd like to offer you today. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more ideas coming out of today, and I look forward to hearing all of those different ideas. But I think my takeaway message is, let's be radical, let's think big, and let's say we can, we must, we will change society. Thank you.